Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Xtreme Studios in the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I have with me tonight the young 20 something from Central Florida as well, Professor Pixel as well from the great Midwest, RDV. And of course, we are continuing revisiting the 1980s because here on the Extreme Movie Show, gentlemen, we like to say we're 80s based. So, what better way to kind of reintroduce everybody as well as all the new members we've had recently, especially with all the videos that have been blowing up here, and then to go over in sequence the 1980s. And just a note for everybody before I turn over to RDV, our MC for tonight, with the list. These aren't the 10 best movies. They're not necessarily our 10 favorite movies. They're just 10 movies that we wanted to talk about in no particular order other than when they're released here, too. So there's got to be some disappointments for some of you guys. If you guys got questions about some, by all means, ask. We love the fact that you guys are giving feedback about what you liked and what you remembered. We just want to talk about why these movies are kind of interesting, some cool stuff about it, because that may pique your interest about it. And of course, enough people ask for it,
Yep.
we'll give it the extreme treatment. So, Artie, why don't you kind of talk about 82 here and get us rolling?
All right. Well, as we always go through, we at least about 10 that we talk about, but there are some runners up that almost made it into our list. One of them, it has some lesbianos, and that's personal best. I saw this on the Independent Film Channel when I was Pixel's age, and I had no idea that it was about a bisexual girl who basically falls in love with one of her fellow runners she's competing against. Muriel Hemingway. Wow. What talk about young nice introduction to her. Rob, you wanted this to be on the top 10, but it kind of got overruled. But so what is it other than the fact that it's two hot girls
Well, I think
and a
when you
pixel on
take
the
a look
right?
at this film, it's
You know,
a lot of
Pixel
people give
Love?
Meryl Hemingway and a lot of people that are really pretty and are young starting off. And they go, oh, she's just in it because she's hot or she fucked the director or something stupid, right?
Yeah.
But I think with Personal Best, it's actually a really good film. And, of course, you've got, how do I say this? You've got themes that were kind of somewhat
Yeah.
taboo at the time to talk about because in professional sports, at an elite level athlete kind of thing, all you want to do is screw all the time. Your hormones are crazy, and it's something people don't talk about. Even with the Olympics today, it's a big fuck fest. And the reason why I mention that is because people, I think back then, especially 70s and 80s, you talk about the bicentennial, you talk about the Olympics coming here in '84 in the United
Yeah.
States. Our amateurs, for the most part, going up against the world's best. There was the national pride thing with it too. And so, even though you've got a movie like this that's kind of not necessarily super popular and it's got women in it, I just think it's very solid. I remember seeing it as a kid too, and not going, "Oh my god, beautiful women, boobs, this, that, what's going on." I just remember it was being captivating the way they acted. It was something different at the time. I
Yeah.
don't know if you'd really have anything like that going out there today, where they're not just shoving it in your face or
It's
being PC by
it's
modern standards. I just think it's a really solid film that's very overlooked and not talked about.
honestly it was very kind of wholesome. Like I said, it wasn't like in your face, like CW, like I'm gay, and all the other guys around them are horrible. Uh, this is 1982,
Yeah,
so it was like what, so and then like I said, she's a girl who basically wants to, she's competing, and then she ends up having a relationship with one of her this girl, and then and it gets to a point where she has to put aside the relationship because she wants to win, and it's like I said, wholesome lesbians, right? That doesn't exist anymore.
right. Well, track and field. Let me say this too, just as an aside for the older people like myself or anybody that's interested in sports. There's a small company out there. I think it was in Oregon called Nike. That's the Greek goddess of victory. That a guy who I believe started. I think it was Phil Knight. I think he was just a runner, and so he got started by selling shoes out of the back of his car. So running, and then in the '70s, this whole fitness thing that's pretty much kind of started on the West Coast and came to the East. People would exercise and do stuff, but there was this movement that we always joked about this with the 80s with breakdancing
Mhm.
and Wall Street and all that kind of stuff, that people were trying to push their limits and stuff. There's definitely more, I think, of a focus in the household of staying in shape and all that too. We've always mentioned before there wasn't a lot of fat people back in the '70s, not like there are today, just in terms of general population. And so to see people at the very elite level trying to train for something specific, that was a very legitimate topic to kind of have everything circle around too. But I don't know. I thought Meryl Hemingway was just really good in it. You got a younger Scott Glenn in here. Again, it's just was a very solid movie. There's a ton of movies. Just all I gotta say is, wow, what a great year for movies too. But you're right, this could easily be in the top
Yeah.
10.
Well, the 80s were also known for rebellion years. Seriously, I mean, obviously, this was probably the right time to actually start doing stuff like this. Um, It was starting to become more accepted, especially with Joan Jett and the Heartbreakers and a lot of them. All the female empowerment as far as female singers, rock singers, is more
Yeah.
to like sticking it to the man.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. So our next one is we're going from sweaty lesbians to swamp ass. We're going to swamp thing. Sorry. I put this on there because how could you not mention it at least? Adrian Barbeau, I think her name is.
Yep. John Carpenter's
Yeah,
wife
yeah.
at the time.
Yep. It wasn't. I don't know. Some people say it was like it was parts were scary, other parts were kind of hokey. I would say it's a first attempt at a great character. Obviously, those who have seen the more recent one that came out 2 years ago, I think it was on HBO Max or in DC, whatever it was the show, and that was a lot much better. But I think this is the guy, the creature that plays a creature. Is it the guy who's in the Hills of Eyes?
I don't know off the top of my head.
If I can't
It's been
remember or
so
not.
long since I've seen this.
Yeah,
I remember it.
Honestly, I remember it being good. I remember it being fun. Adrian is awesome, and it's also one of those movies like I just happened to see on Super 18 back in the 90s.
Right.
Super Sundays. They play movies, and this came on. I was just like, wow, what is this? It's like, and then like Swamp Thing. At that point, I wasn't even reading comic books, and if I was, if I even knew anything about some heroes, there was no mention of Swamp Thing. It wasn't as far as I had heard of. Superman and Batman were the big thing in the movies. So I was like, Swamp Thing, what is this? And I watch it, I was like, man, this guy sucks. The guy, like, he gets like knocked over in a chemical, and like in the chemicals, he's on fire, jumps in the swamp, and then he's cursed to be this beast, and he's got this hot babe that like wants to bone him, but you can't because he's all plants. Like, that is torment right there.
What are you talking about? We just talked about the Evil Dead last week.
That's called rape, sir.
Sorry.
Yes.
It may be thorny, but there's no excuse not to do it.
Yeah.
No, I want to ask you guys something about Swamp Thing, actually, that you bring it up, because over on your guys' other channel where you focus more on comic books and graphic novels and all that stuff, I assume that this was a comic or something in print before it became a movie. Is that correct?
As far as I know, the comic was first, and then they brought in this because I think the comic was like late 70s.
Okay.
Breen, who's in the chat, would know.
Gotcha. Yeah, because the stuff like this we look over for crossover promotions, like on your channel, this channel, and all that. And so we've tried figuring out a way to do that. But this one comes to mind as one of the first sort of other Flash Gordon kind of like comic book type movies to watch.
Yep. All right, and next one I had to mention because it is just fun is Bronson's Death Wish #2. Charles Bronson is just awesome in this. Paul Kursky. It's just great. If you've never seen the Death Wish series, you are doing yourself you're doing yourself wrong. Dude, go watch these movies. Come out. Basically, this is the one where remember I think he lures the guys into like the back like the warehouse, and then he just like tortures the guy. Like basically, before Punisher became a movie, Death Wish was the Punisher, pretty much.
That's right, baby.
Charles Bronson, his wife is murdered, and his daughter is raped, and she's left in a vegetable state. And he's just a simple architect, and he uses that, hides behind that, and then he ends up going undercover. The dude like rents apartments. I love this. He rents an apartment.
Shithole apartment.
Yeah, shithole apartment.
Bad side of town.
Bad starts out, and then he kind of dresses like a bum, so no one notices. Like, and just like I just love it. And it got mixed reviews because people are like, vigilantes. Oh, he's going. He's murdering people. And they're like, oh, he's just like, and it's just showing it's like, man, this is sometimes
He's older. He can do that.
I honestly, with the way some of the crime is, if you live by the sword, die by the sword, the whole phrase, you live by the gun, you're gonna die by the gun. Like it's wholesome vigilantism. Yes, it is that.
Now, Pixel, you're not familiar with these movies at all.
Oh,
what about Charles Bronson in general?
No, I've definitely seen stuff with Charles Bronson before.
You got to see him. I mean, because in the '80s he had kind of like this. I don't want to say it's a resurgence because he kind of never went away, but the types of films that you could do, especially as an older actor going into it, you would have to kind of shift a little bit. So to me, I look at this as kind of like when you kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. Bronson's always going to be this macho, tough guy,
Yeah.
strong, silent type, and to see him in the first movie being somebody that just kind of, you know, he's what we would have called back in the day a classical liberal. You know, he was well to do. He wasn't really big into the social stuff, but he was an anti-violence kind of guy.
He was a
And he
sweet old
finds out the
man.
hard way that the streets don't care.
Yeah.
And when cops are minutes away, and trouble seconds away, better have a gun. And so they get a little silly with it. But this was actually the first set of movies as a kid growing up. I wasn't 100% sure on the politics, just like when we did all the Dirty Harry films, RDV, we talked about some of the politics behind it. He's still an agent of the state. Paul Kersey is not. So to me, if you want to go
Yeah.
true hardcore vigilante style, it's Paul Kersey, and it really is him because he presents himself, I guess, as a potential victim, and then when people cross that line, he just blasts them, and that's it. Nothing cute about it, no overly elaborate setups or something stupid. It's just boom, and it's just satisfying the way he does it, and it's a testament to his ability to make you believe that, hey, as an old man, you don't want to screw with him around with him because he'll pull that gun out, and boom.
And
it's a lot of fun.
What's great about that is a detective from the town and knows him and follow him and like is convinced that he's going around killing. It's like, and he's like, no, I'm not. Oh, what are you talking about? It's like, you're the wrong guy.
Do I look like the kind of guy that could kill someone?
You know, right? It's just like, and the funny part is like, I look at Charles Bronson, I look at him in this, is exactly exponential of my friend's dad. My friend's dad's calm, quiet like this, and he has guns. I'm thinking like, it's like your dad's. I know his dad's got a temper. It's like, dude, your dad could secretly be a Charles Bronson vigilante. Like no one would know. It's like,
as much as we love the finger gun guy, the meme or the gif or whatever from T.J. Hooker, I think Bronson had it first.
Yeah, right. All right, going on to our next movie. We're gonna go to the Evil.
Yeah, these are just runner-ups still in no particular order.
Yep.
Nothing to say about this.
This is Rob's pick. I don't know anything about it.
Agatha Christie's Evil. Oh, it's a
but it is Peter Ustinov. Yeah, he's in here though. I saw that. So
James Mason, Roddy McDowell. Are you kidding me? Diana Rigg. Come on, look at that list there.
Right.
Yeah,
Cole Porter with that. This is one of my first introductions to what I would call detective stuff that wasn't like the old black and white Sam Spade, Humphrey Bogart type detective films, which I always thought were cool. This was more a different type. I mean, you got Miss Marple and other British ones too, but always liking Sherlock Holmes and seeing a lot of different versions of it. To see something as far as a film like this, a whodunit. Again, a Pixel, you and I just got through finishing up season 1 of Mission Impossible Offline, which will drop on Thursday. And I think the big thing we talked about that show was fairly consistent schedule. You knew what you were going to get. It wasn't going to probably surprise you too much, whatever. But it set the template for a lot of spy stuff. To me, Evil Under Some with the whodunit, you can talk about your glass knives, onions out, whatever the hell that stuff is. I don't really care. I still think of these because these are based off of stuff, I want to say turn of the century or a little bit later, maybe, for Agatha Christie. So it was always a fun watch, and I thought he really owned the character. I just do. This it's a very delightful film. It's a film you can watch if you're really young too, and understand there's a murder, but not be freaked out by it. It's not going to freak you out too much. Like if you saw Christopher Lee as Sherlock Holmes, you're going to shit your pants if you're a little kid, but nobody's going to watch that anymore. This one's very, very watchable. It's a great introduction to the type of movie that we'd all still like today.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love a good power film, so I mean that. I think I actually have seen one of his prior because Peter used to know he went ahead and he did a couple of these. I think I went ahead and rewatched his Murder on the Orient Express.
I gotta ask. So when are we gonna run out of wholesomes? Because we already got like 4 now from Breed.
You can never have too much wholesome.
Wholesome lesbian, wholesome cleavage, wholesome
it's time for wholesome puppets.
Now it's wholesome mystery. All right.
Guy Hamilton, by the way, directed it. James Bond, a lot of involvement too, so it's very stylish.
All right, our next one is also a pick from Rob as well.
Is it? Notice how mine got regulated. No, Deathtrap was not on my list. I think this is overrated.
Oh.
To me, this
Was
is a
it your
bit
list?
goofy.
Are you kidding?
No, I am not kidding. I'm very serious, and here's why. A lot of plays that got made into movies still look like a play to me is being performed rather than a movie. And of course, the poster child for this is, of course, is
Yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show, which actually is fun live. At least it was back in the '80s. Now it's probably sanitized. But Death Trap, it's like, okay, it's cute, I guess. But go ahead, Pixel. You're getting a boner for this. That's fine. You have half the
Yeah,
chub. Give it to
no.
us.
I mean, Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, it's a great cast.
Yeah, no, the cast is great, and I mean, it's a funny mystery. It's a very light-hearted mystery. It's
a comedy horror.
Huh?
It's a comedy horror.
No.
Okay.
Well, it's rated PG for pretty good.
There's nothing horrifying about it.
I know.
It's
cute.
Yeah.
That's my problem with that. I don't
Very
like
cute.
You can do cute too much. This one I remember watching it going, it's just a little too cute.
You know what I kept thinking when I saw this? I'm like, oh, it's a predecessor to Cube.
Rubik's Cube. Or the Cube.
All right. But the next one you need to be silent for because I have a lot of rage.
Wait a second. Let me just start off with this and I'll let you take it.
We're not even on the top 10.
This is one of the few things I was looking forward to tonight on this list.
Yeah.
I have a cold, so I'm trying to stay away from the smooth R&B voice for now. Science created him. Now Chuck Norris must destroy him. Okay, I'm done. I love that line. This movie, we covered RDV some years back when we were just launching the channel talking about Chuck Norris films. Take it away.
Wow. This was just a nutso movie. Chuck Norris versus a guy who just won't freaking die. I'm like, this guy took like 3 roundhouse kicks from Chuck Norris and lived. This guy is a legend. The point where, like, he had basically, I think he ended up burying him alive, right? Or just kept.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
dropping his ass down the well.
Yeah, just great, man. One of my friends, Mark Pellegrini, was on Twitter. He's like, "Oh, I'm just watching this." He's like, "Look, bored. It's on Tubi." I'm like, "This is on Tubi? Hell yeah, I'm gonna go watch it." Pixel, you need to watch this movie. Chuck Norris and Ron Silver, man, is in here too as well. This is the bar scene too. Remember, this is the movie with the bar scene, I believe, with the fat guy. Yeah, his deputy, and then it's again a bar fight, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take you on," and he's he's like, "Yeah, you basically one of those scenes you always see like where the guy's like, he's afraid, he thinks he's the boss, he's gonna, but they're all afraid of the guy standing behind him, which is Chuck Norris, and then Chuck Norris has this awesome 5-minute brawl fight, he just beats the shit out of people, and at the end they're all just kind of laying there in the bar, and when the
I believe that guy's Flounder from Animal House, if I remember correctly.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
this movie actually. Well, no, you're right. It's a lot of his early films. He was still kind of, I think, finding what he wanted to do, and he obviously nailed it. And I think there's a definite progression if you watch him in order, which is kind of how we went to do them, where they get a little bit better. This one's actually very good. I'm not going to say it's a horror movie, but it's kind of dark. It's not a pleasant film, which sounds weird.
It's a sci-fi horror movie.
Yeah, especially with the bad guy. And the opening scene, even though you might go, "Oh, this is a Halloween type of ripoff," it's kind of creepy. I mean, the guy and how he does it, because the guy's scary to look at. He really is.
Yeah,
and it's in a shitty kind of part of town or Texas where it's dark and dirty, and it's a good film. I was surprised by how good it still held up.
Yeah, they shoot him in the very beginning. He's going schizo. He's got a knife. He's gonna attack this woman, and then they end up shooting him. And then he's dead. And then he gets taken to the scientific lab, and then they use him experimenting, and ends up becoming uncontrollable. And yeah, it's just crazy. And like I said, Chuck Norris movies, as they started out, they were kind of rough, and then they started getting better, and then especially by to the late '80s, when just like I said, another movie we're talking about is on our list. Later on with Arnold. That when you start seeing all these action movies start coming together, that's when Chuck Norris is like Mission to Action, Delta Force, all those great movies, Invasion USA. Like that's when his career just blew up like crazy.
Yeah.
But our next one, It's also about a dead man, and he doesn't wear plaid.
Pixel, you haven't seen this.
No.
I
Damn
never heard
it.
it. I
No, I mean
honestly,
it's Steve Martin, so I mean I'm surprised I haven't heard it. Well,
yeah,
tell me why I might not have heard about it.
Well, the thing that makes this movie different is that it's black and white, and a big chunk of it's cut up of old classic detective movies. So you see like really old actors in there, like Humphrey Bogart for a split second, and they splice it all in there. And there's different kinds of jokes. There's exaggeration. There's a few others. There's a real famous coffee scene in here. I'll just leave it at that, so you don't look that up and just watch it. Rachel Ward's in it. Smoke Show.
it's
She
Carl
was like
Reiner
my
film.
second crush. Well, but the thing is she was blown up at the time, and you know what? Steve Martin was already big on the comedy circuit. He was trying to cross over movies, and he already made The Jerk. So this is kind of a big deal that this came out. But then you had like Pennies from Heaven, which hit or miss, I guess, for some
Yeah.
people's. But this one, I still think's kind of funny. It's just the thing about the Chuck Norris movie and this one that they both have in common, believe it or not, is there's a singular idea of what they're trying to do. And here, this definitely feels like a Steve Martin movie. Now, The Jerk's a better movie. Do not get me wrong.
Yep.
But that feels like a bunch of performances slapped together in a film. This one feels like a Steve Martin film, and he would go on to do a bunch more movies, obviously, since then. And if your exposure to Steve Martin is Only Murders in the Building, which I think is pretty good, I like it. You go back and you go, God, he did this movie 50 years ago, roughly 40 years ago, let's say.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, it's just still really good. When Steve Martin goes, that's going to be a bad day.
Yeah, mine is like
this is really good.
Like I said, I've never heard of this one. I thought I watched all of them. I mean, I watched The Jerk. I watched The Man with Two Brains. Mixed Nuts. All those. I sat through a bunch of. I know, right? But like I said, honestly, it's another Steve Martin movie that I have to watch. It's on the list.
Yeah.
But this our last runner up is Professor Pixel's pick. He has this thing about crystal persuasion, and he's being persuaded by this dark crystal. And he froze.
Mostly because
There he
one,
is.
I knew it. Two, because I personally really love this film. It's one of Jim Henson's like real serious passion projects. It's not meant to be this light, funny, just slapstick humor, which is great. I love the Muppets, but this is supposed to be a serious story with puppetry, and I loved this story, and it's actually spanned off one of the best spin-off series I've ever seen, which didn't get any love, but that's another story for another day.
I was in either.
This movie, it is slow, it is serious, yes, but it's supposed to be an epic, and it's an epic to me. That's what's important.
See, when this movie came out, I was like, do I want to watch Legend with Tom Cruise and the Devil, or do I want to watch this one with the Muppets and the Elflings, whatever they're called, the Deer People, and the crazy birds that remind you of Dalton. But it's literally one that has a monocle. I'm like, that's Dalton. But anyway, I watched this. It was good. But I'm with MK. I was confused with Labyrinth.
I've
actually never seen Labyrinth.
I like to joke with you guys about how I love evil doll movies, even though they're stupid, right? Whether it's Megan or like Magic with Anthony Hopkins. But part of that, I think, goes back to the days of vaudeville where, you had to sing and dance and act on stage. So your old-time actors, especially in black and white movies and all that, would be overly dramatic with the way they would move and talk and stuff. And things have changed, right? But I think with Disney, especially blown up here in Central Florida in 71, I think is when they opened. And then, of course, Universal came and all these other places and all that, whatever. But Disney was known, and we're not diving into politics here. I'm simply stating, knowing people that have worked there since the opening for quite some time. they were known for quality in their work. They hand drew all their cells and what they did, all stuff. Their artwork was second to none. And for people to dive into animatronics and all that, Disney was like, no, this is a viable thing. And that the Muppets, everybody loves the Muppets, right? I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
So this is not unusual. But again, it kind of ties into that Chuck Norris Dead Man Don't Wear Plaid sort of theme here of singular vision of something. I haven't seen this in forever. But I kind of started thinking about it when we were doing this. I'm like, oh, Dark Crystal. Have I seen this lately? What's
Yep,
going on?
yep.
Because it's in that wonderful tune, Trip Like I Do, where the guy's got the voiceover thing going. And so it's neat how even like a generation today that just goes, let me get a dumb clip from something from the 80s and loop it to have a little drop and all
Right.
that. And talk, of course, I'm talking, it was that Crystal Method. So I don't know. This is not bad, but it was divisive at the time. And part of it, I think, is because people went, why is Disney doing adult stuff? Why don't they just do kids stuff?
Well,
And of course, it wouldn't be very long after that till
This isn't
Disney
Disney,
totally
though.
changed
This
what they
isn't
did.
Disney, Rob.
This is Disney, though. It's Jim Henson.
Yeah, it's Jim Henson.
I still look at it as that, though, so.
Totally different.
Not though.
Yeah, okay,
It wasn't
I'll shut up.
then.
Now shut up. Should have caught me early before I was ranting.
I'm,
Right.
I'm sorry to beat the sick man, but it wasn't Disney at the time.
Yes, yes.
Well,
But
everything I
anyway,
still said about Disney is valid, but the Dark Crystal reminds me of it because it came out around that time,
Well,
so I
like I
stand
said,
corrected.
so they go from the Muppet caper, whatever, all that stuff, the
Right.
Muppet movie, and then go to this. It's like, it's for kids or adults?
Yeah, waka to this. But let me ask you, would you rather watch an adult type of thing like the Dark Crystal, or would you rather watch something like what was it, like Willow and that kind of stuff where it's cutesy and kidsy?
I would rather watch this movie in a reboot, but as people.
I would no. Why? You don't need people.
Yes.
No, like
yes.
the coolest thing are these creatures that they move and they feel so real. That's the magical thing behind the Jim Henson Company.
I want the Muppet movie, the next one, to be Lord of the Muppets.
Lord of the Muppets.
Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings, but it's Muppets.
Muppet of the Rings.
Muppets.
All right.
Good.
All right. Our first movie tonight, though, for our top 10. This came out.
We're almost half an hour in, RDB.
I was expecting this to show them and go on, but you guys want to talk about them. All right. Our first one, yes, is came out on March 4th, and it is the New York Ripper.
RDB, take it away, baby.
Honestly, this is an Italian movie that doesn't think it says it takes place in New York, but doesn't. There's none of it's filmed in New York whatsoever, but it's set up to look like New York. It's great. Someone's going around murdering people. The poor girl on the bicycle goes on the ferry, and when I say ferry, I mean she's on the boat. Okay, guys, I understand.
Yes, we know.
Okay, well, some people might get the other direction hints. Anyway, honestly, this was taking on a different approach because you had Friday the 13th out and stuff of this, and this was just a typical slasher movie. And then you find out who the guy is. It's like at the end, it's like, what? Like it's such a huge plot twist you would not expect.
Well, the thing about it too that was different that I was surprised is the fact that, okay, this is if I'm saying the name right, a Fulci film, an Italian guy, and there's like Dario Argento and some others. So this was kind of like a reach film as far as, watching it and reviewing it, because it's one we wanted to try to do when we would do our like Halloween reviews. We try to pick like maybe an Italian one or a Spanish one, so it's a couple of European ones because they're different than American, and we tried picking out some Asian ones and other ones too. And this is one of those, and it's pretty good. It's a nice introduction to his type of films, because if you see what he does and how he does it, whether it's the violence or the sexuality or any of that kind of stuff, you might go, hell, let me go check out some of his other films like it too. And that's all you had to go by is, oh, this guy did this film, let me go check out something else. Yeah.
I definitely said check these out. If you haven't watched these, you'll thank me later, or you'll curse me later. Let me know in the comment section if you watch any of these after what your thoughts are. All right. Our next movie is a no-brainer. It came out on May 14th. For those who were old enough to actually seen this in theaters, you know what this movie is.
Conan the Barbarian.
I don't care what Zach over on the Geeky Poet Show says. This is awesome movie. Yeah.
He thinks it's bad.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just Zach. He has bad takes. But anyway, getting back apart from that, Thief, Warrior, Gladiator, King, Arnold's best movie. I love Commando, but I still say Conan is probably I want to.
It's
It's
his
hard.
best movie. If you had to take one Schwarzenegger movie, to me, this
Yeah,
is it.
over the other. But I mean,
Over any of it, over Terminator, over Terminator
best
2, all of
action
them.
movie though is Commando. Best fantasy movie he's done, Conan the Barbarian. But overall, altogether, I would say this is his best movie.
Me too.
I know there are people who like Kindergarten Cop.
What did I rank it? Because we did the review of it just this last year.
Well, actually, it's interesting because we didn't kind of rank these when we compiled them, but we, just for the people popping it now, what we're doing is we're taking some films, and like on Tuesday, RDV, you and I are going to have two films that are going to go head to head. Two movies enter, one movie leaves. So we're going to just talk about it, right? And Conan was one of them, so we've said a lot about Conan in there. If you really want to dive deep, but I agree with you. If I had to pick one film out of the entire Schwarzenegger catalog and get rid of all the others, I'm keeping Conan. That's how strong I feel about it. Is that good?
Yes, probably the best on-screen adaptation of a comic book, I'd say, or at least of a story, onto a movie. And it just you'll never make it. There's never going to be another better fantasy movie than Conan.
Yeah, it's Dick and John Milius for the way you wrote it and everything. Yeah, plenty of stuff to say now. Let's go on to the next one.
All right, our next one came out a week later, May 28th, and let's just say he still wants to go the distance. Clubber Lang, and then we have Hulk Hogan, Thunder Lips.
It's truly a fantastic. It's one of my favorite movies from this year. Rocky 3 is still like. There are people that say that this is the one that really has a change because the first one is very serious. Second one is still serious. It's just following up on the fight and giving Rocky the win for real. And then this one, he gets beaten. You see your hero beaten. But that whole sequence that people love to make fun of, it's one of the best action sequences.
Because prideful. He ends up losing the championship. Then he has to retrain, and then he has, I believe he trains with Apollo Creed of all people.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to see when they're running on the beaches, and it's just great. He just teaches them how to fight, just like Apollo Creed fights.
Teaches them the ways of the street.
Yeah.
And FYI, those shorts that Rocky had and those long friggin' tube socks, everybody wore them back then, guys wise. That wasn't that uncommon.
Clubber Lang is obviously Mr. T for the A-Team. If you don't know that, I pity you because you're a fool. And then they also have Hulk Hogan was the other guy, Thunder Lips. So I was like one of the two big names in like the 80s coming in, and Mr. T had blown up with the A-Team at the time, and then Hulk Hogan over at WWF. It was just great to see some more celebrities guest appearing in movies like this, crossing over sports entertainment. And honestly, you get to see more Burt Young, Talia Shire, just the fun stuff. After this, we get to my favorite Rocky. It'd be Rocky 4. I just love the whole Dolph Lundgren. If he dies, he dies. Like the whole thing. I love that whole music, everything. But man. Mickey's still alive in this, he's still calling Rock a bum.
Yep.
It's just a good movie. Overall, if you've never watched any of Stallone's as far as the Rocky movies, go watch them, dude. I don't know why you wouldn't want to order unless you've never heard of them. You have excuse, Yep. But I mean, But our next movie on the list came out in June 25th of that year. Stars Harrison Ford, Sean Young, Blade Runner. One of the most popular moves of the 80s that I've come across as far as hashtag searches when I type in titles on Instagram and other places, over 1 million, or more, just people using the hashtag. Blade Runner is just, I'd say there's a handful of people like me who love the setting, the world, all that stuff. Then there's others who love the story too. And then there's people who love both. It is just created a whole new genre, basically of just dystopian movies as far as futuristic tech like this. Obviously, these are replicants; these are kind of like robots. Rutger Hauer is in this. I was typing up hashtags. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to use Harrison Ford this year because we used him last year. And I'm like, wait, he's in this one again, and then so is Rutger Hauer. Damn it! Both those guys are just taking off as far as their careers. Because we talked about Raiders, and now we're talking about Blade Runner. Blade Runner is a very, very long movie. Now, I can only sit through it once, but for me, the best part, the meat and potatoes, is the end scene with Rutger Hauer, where they're fighting up in the rain. I love that. The other thing is it's like, okay, what do I remember from Blade Runner? Is Harrison Ford sitting down eating noodles at the little food truck.
Go ahead, Pixel.
So I'm going to actually, I almost want to ask what people think my opinion is going to be of this. Knowing, I know we're a panel of nerds, but we're all very different types of nerds, and usually sci-fi is like what I dig right into. I do know it's boring. I'm going to be honest. I've never seen the appeal of Blade Runner. Like, I love the setting's neat. It looks very good, but the story didn't hook me.
I'll give you an answer to that.
Yeah.
Seriously, this movie really didn't do that well when it came out. But Ridley Scott, I have not seen Napoleon. While it may visually look very good, I think the story and what they do with Napoleon's probably 100% off and doesn't look right. So I don't know what's going on there. But this is one of the first movies that when it came out, you're like, holy shit, this is really different. I mean, this is up there with some of the bigger film name guys, late 70s and 80s, as far as being very, very visually striking. And nobody had seen anything like this before. A lot of people like to talk about A Space Odyssey and all that, which is really kind of a stoner movie and it's got some scenes in it. But this was the movie that made people think of the future and technology and everything too in such a way that
Flying
nobody really
cars, all that
visualized
stuff.
it. Yeah, it was incredible. But the thing about it too is that in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, if you had people writing on television, whether it was for um, Outer Limits or any of those kinds of shows, Star Trek immediately comes to mind, the original series. Pixel, you and I talked about Mission Impossible about the writing being kind of whatever. But here, you had the sharp divide, I would say, at least in the 70s, between what we would call hard science fiction, which is stuff like this, and what you call that glossy camp kind of shit, like Flash Gordon and Star Wars. And let's be honest, guys, Star Wars is a fantasy kind of soap opera. Nothing wrong with that. But two very distinct styles. And so what really happened with this movie is a lot of people that are hardcore into technology and computers and stuff, which were not mainstream. When you saw something like this, they felt validated. And it was like, see, this is what the shit should be like, not that Star Wars crap. And I'm not shitting on Star Wars here. I'm simply talking about there's a very distinctive camp between people that liked the lighthearted stuff and people that felt it was reaching up towards something big. And again, this movie did not do gangbusters when it came out, but it was very visually very striking. People who liked it liked it. Of course, Harrison Ford's in it. The acting's great. Blade Runner is a tremendous movie, but it's always been very divisive, and that's before the 50 million different types of endings and cuts and all that shit to it.
I mean, I like the fact that it's just supposed to be your crime noir, kind of movie like this. This guy lived life,
right.
and then obviously, and then we have a little bit. I guess you could also say this movie probably inspired The Matrix as far as what the robots being oppressed, replicants, because humans made them, and then they just use them as property. Sean Young's character is a replicant who he reluctantly ends up falling in love with, which is really weird too. It's like it's such a strange movie as far as this is the future, far future. Like we have flying cars, but yet the Earth is it's such it's hard to breathe in because there's hardly any oxygen, so much pollution. It was I was like, this is depressing, but also kind of cool because I like flying cars. But I mean, it's just the whole cyber thing, it's cyberpunk in general. It just blew up from this movie, and it just became this movie got such a huge cult following. Still to today, it's pretty popular. I think more people like the concept more than they like the movie, though.
That's a fair point. I think Pixel, in a long-winded way of me saying it, I think that sums up what you were trying to say.
Yeah. I do want to see the sequel. funny enough. Like I've been meaning to see
Oh, you didn't?
2049.
I liked it.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot of people really
it's better than the
still
first
look
one.
stunning.
Yeah.
That's what I'm suspecting. For me, at least, it might feel like it's a better movie to me. But Verity. There are a lot of movies like this that they go ahead and they are going to steal from one another.
Well, this was an old idea out of a book anyway, or a short story.
Yeah.
Like a lot of science fiction was at that time. So it's
What is
not
it
like
called?
this was an original idea at all. It really wasn't.
What is it called? Do robots dream of electronic sheep? Something like that.
Yeah, androids
And
dream of
that's
electric
pretty
sheep.
much the line at the end of the movie.
Yes.
But yeah,
Daryl Hannah's in this too, right? Or the girl, the one she plays.
I think so.
She's the girl that's going around killing people too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, like I said, I like the sequel more than I like the original, but the original still I respect because
Ryan Gosling's in the second one.
Yep.
That's why it's a couple levels lower automatically.
And a DMS.
Oh, that's right.
Dude, I like Ryan Gosling. He's a good actor. I'm actually going to see The Fall Guy when it comes out. But anyway, let's move on. I'm not spending too much time on this movie though. All right, now this is the one that I know Rob likes this because if he doesn't, he might be one of them.
Well, I mean, the thing is one of those hard movies to watch. There's a lot of paranoia, and I think it's one of the better movies that captures that. Up there with Invasion of the Body Snatchers, let's say. Very few films I think can achieve that. It's one of those films, and we talked about this a little bit, how people shit on it and thought it was crap because it was so damn dark, and people wanted to go watch E.T. and have popcorn and not think and use their brain. So I've always liked it. Kurt Russell's in it, so I'm trying to take my bias out of it, but it's hard not to. But the one thing I've noticed, other than Larry Bird on YouTube, where everyone's saying, yeah, he would just own everybody today, nobody's benefited more from revisiting their old shit than John Carpenter, because now all of a sudden everybody out there who's like 7 years old and older, having their own channel, wants to talk about how great this film is. And of course, they're all echo chambering off of each other, just like they do with reaction videos and all those complaints we have about that on there. But what is good about it is that there are some people I think that have actually given it a shot because of it. Otherwise, because this thing bombed, you wouldn't have really heard about it unless you had somebody that really liked it. But again, this is when he's peaking, and he's making a lot of great movies that just very visual to watch, and they're not lighthearted. The thing is great. It's really, really tremendous. Yeah. I don't know how you can really do better with what they tried to accomplish here. I really don't.
So I don't like this movie at all, and it's not because I think it's too dark. I don't.
Just tell us why you don't like it. Give us an example so we can talk about that. I don't think
the visual effects are bad. I just couldn't find myself caring. I like all the actors in it, but whenever the dog gets in there, I don't care about any of these people. They don't give me anything to really care about. That the coolest scene is in fact the one with the blood when they're doing all the tests. And then, that's a cool scene. But to me, it didn't make it a good movie. There's nothing appealing to me about watching this. I've never revisited it. I watched it one time and I was like, no. And I've watched it the whole way through. I'm not I just stopped it. I'm not going back. It insists upon itself. No, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
Interesting, because I've always said if you don't like the character or don't appreciate him, it's hard to be emotionally invested in it. Maybe you're saying it, but I'm thinking that was an intentional thing here because, again, it's supposed to be a group of people that just because it's Kurt Russell, you think he's the guy, but you really don't know, and he may be the alien at the end. So I think that being disconnected to all that really helps with the paranoia, and that was the whole point of the film.
This was such a popular movie that, and me growing up as a kid in the 90s, I watching Mighty Max. They paid tribute to this, so the aliens.
Oh my God!
I love aliens.
Yeah, but honestly, I like this movie. Now I get a little disgusted when they start transforming, like the stuff kind of like the claymation stuff, really gross. I was like, that's just disgusting.
It's gross.
It's gross, but it is such. I love it as far as paranoia movies. It's like they're all there. Like, are we all aliens? Which one of us is it? You don't know. The whole paranoia at the end thing, I love it.
Yeah.
Then fire seems to kill it. So they're like, kill the fire, the flamethrower, and everything. I just love it. They're like, they cut
Great
each
third
other.
act.
They cut each other. Yeah, at the end, like they're cutting each other to see who heals.
Yeah.
Or what's up. Like I just love it, and it's like in Antarctica pretty much, which I love because that's where you can do anything because people don't really know what's Antarctica. We know that the United States has territory over there, so does England, so does China, and stuff, but we don't really. So it's like everybody says, like, well, that's where the aliens are. That was Stargate. That's the Atlantis. There was actually a Stargate over there. We saw that in the King of Monsters with Godzilla. There was Ghidorah was over there. I just love the concept whenever a movie takes place in Antarctica because the extreme elements. We watched Whiteout with Kate Beckinsale. Same thing.
Right.
I love those movies like this. Because it just you're in such a remote part of the world, and it adds to the creepiness of this.
Yeah. Part of the practical effects to it, though, is the fact that the interiors they had studios and all that, but they shot, of course, the exteriors actually on location, like on some ice cap somewhere up there, and that's pretty damn cool. Because when I watch this movie, the one thing I can say is, paranoia aside, it's a movie that I feel cold watching, if that makes sense. Like you believe it's there. I know it's fake and this, that, and their beard and all that too, but it just hey, you got to get your ass inside here. Then it forces you inside to be among other people, and it's not easy to get away. So it's great. It's supposed to play on that little reptilian part of your brain that just goes, I know something's wrong, but I don't know what it is.
I watch this during winter because it's basically when you see them, they got the snow on their beard. That's what I feel like when I'm outside.
Yeah.
During this time of the year.
No, fair enough. Pixel, a lot of people did not like this film. Actually, a lot of people thought it was pretty shitty. I never did, but your opinion is not a minority one when it comes to the thing with John Carpenter.
Our next movie, though, which came out on July 30th, is Chuck Norris, Force Vengeance. Another movie with Chuck Norris, just kicking ass. Like I said, I'm trying to remember which one this was because I remember the casino one. I'm like, is this a casino one? These get a little confused because Chuck Norris put out a lot of movies in the 80s, especially in the early 80s. He said there's 2 in this year, and then he had like 2 the next year. Like I said, fun movie.
This is the hat one, the Hong Kong one.
Oh yeah, the ones in Hong Kong. This is casino one then, right? Right? Yeah. Wow.
This is good.
Yeah, you get to see the streets of San Francisco in the very beginning, and then he goes over to the Hong Kong casino. It's you need to watch it.
Yeah, no, I need to watch a lot more Chuck Norris.
And what's really good about that we're doing this is I'm grabbing the old movie posters. That's why you see the lines there. Somebody scanned their own poster. So whenever I can find, now I want to buy these posters, put them on my wall.
Yeah, awesome. The real famous scene out of this movie is where he's got the 2 chicks and they're trying to run away and they're being chased, and they're fighting in front of this big neon sign or whatever, and he just takes his hat off and he gives it to one of the ladies. Everyone's always picking on him and his hat here. It's just, like I say, this movie's a step up from your Breakers, which is not a very good movie, but it's worth a watch.
Is this where his girlfriend gets killed?
Fan. What's that?
Is this one where his girlfriend gets killed and he's helped out by the black guy, former Marine guy?
That I think's the other one, but this is the one that's got is the one that's got the stick fighting guy that's like, I am going to tear you apart piece by piece on the boat.
On the boat, okay.
Because houseboats were like a thing in the late 70s. I don't know foul play.
They're starting to. I know we reviewed them all last year, but they're starting to blur all together. So like, I know this part, I know this part. It's okay, but definitely check this out, Pixel. Our next movie, though, it came out on July 30th. This is Night Shift. It wouldn't be right to let you live after you killed our friend Franklin.
Pixel, I'm just gonna say this is like the other movie that I'm going to describe as just being kind of cute. So it's okay, but I'm not going to go. I'm not going to watch it unless I'm getting paid to. If you know what I'm saying, I will pass on this for something else.
I wouldn't pass it out. Michael Keaton. Henry Winkler and is in this. They're working the morgue. They decide to take over the prostitution thing, basically being the pimps for these girls, make money off of that. They become too famous, and like it's just I just love it. It has a girl from Cheers is in this.
Sure.
The blonde.
Yep.
Yep. Get to see her topless. So Yeah, you're like, oh,
See, Pixel, there's a wholesome way to consider prostitution. If you look at it as just a transaction between two consenting adults. Obviously, this would be
yeah,
romanticized in the 80s fashion, Risky Business by Tangerine Dream, with the soundtrack. And of course, this one, they did it again. So this is not a new thing. So all the stuff that's going on today, again, you go back and go, yeah, I remember Night Shift, they just decided they would become pimps. If it were only that easy, right? It's just, here's, Pix, let me ask you this serious question. If you're going to be a pimp today, what do you need?
Internet.
You need
You just
whores.
need to set up an
You need
OnlyFans
whores.
for your girls.
You need the ladies. You need your harem. Okay, Easy E. That hurt me deeply.
Not today. Not in 2024.
If you're gonna be a pimp, yes.
Okay, who was the actor that was the college actor that was gonna get laid in the morgue, but he broke it up before he get. I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe Eric remembers who he was. They didn't credit him though. I'm sure I can't remember what his name was, but it was an actor that popped up here. I was like, I have to look it up again. But very fun movie though. I loved it. I thought
people liked it a lot. It was very
yeah,
popular.
yeah. And I gotta thank you to Eric for talking to me about this movie because he's the one that recommended it for me to watch it. All right, next one, August 13th, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Honestly, this is the first time we got to see Sean Penn as himself without even acting. And the guy, I know people like watching him and like in the other movies, was a Beautiful Mind or Cinderella. I can't remember what it was. It's some other movie like that. And honestly, I love this. Judge Reinhold is in here too as well. Forget, is it Phoebe? Is it Phoebe something? Who's the girl? It's the one that she's in the bottom there. To the
I'm
right.
not even looking at that right now.
Oh, you're not even looking at that?
No, I was pulling up something else.
Oh, I'm trying to remember who the cast is. Other than that, is it Phoebe Cates?
I have no
Yeah.
idea. I've
She's a
never
dark-haired
seen this
one.
movie.
Yeah.
How could you? So here's the thing. We've mentioned before how in the late 70s things were a bit darker. We've talked about a film or two that kind of is like kind of rough and seedy. The 80s, again, John Hughes films, you're like, oh my God, that's just what it was like. And you look out and you go, there's not one piece of graffiti, anywhere in the school. There's not one paper thrown about, no trash or like that. It's so glossy that you just got to go. When you see something like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, that's absolutely a lot more realistic. Deals, with abortion as a topic in there. This is a movie, I think, directed by a woman that actually at the time, there was the Last American Virgin and this one. Those hit home as far as feeling like what it's like to be in high school. Now, I'm not going to argue that's how it is in high school today. Although I could argue that if you watch this, you go, yeah, you're going to see the same thing. And you just might have different people today. But this is one of the best, I think, high school films of all time. It just is really good. It's just captures the time there in the early 80s magnificently, and the themes they deal with and all that's just incredible. How do you know when a woman wants to go all the way? What kind of music do you put on your car? I mean, all this stupid stuff, but that's how guys think. And you have jobs you don't like, you have customers you don't like. It's
mall scenes, I love the whole thing in the mall, seeing the food court, all that stuff.
It was life. It was an oasis.
Yeah,
that's what people did on weekends. They would go there, hook up, party, whatever. It's just, that movie captures it.
I went to my record store. We had one still here, like on Saturday, and it was just like, I couldn't believe how packed it was. People were just out just to be out because it was actually warm outside instead of freezing their ass off. It's the weekend, so I couldn't believe the record store, like record stores. Like, I would have thought they would close down, but we've had one. But anyway, Judge Reinhold before Beverly Hills Cop.
Yep. A lot of people in here. Nick Cage.
Yep, Nick Cage in here too. A lot of celebrities popping up here. Honestly,
great film.
I don't like Sean Penn, and this is the only movie I can stand to watch him in. I have watched The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, but this is his best role for him.
He was in another movie, I don't know if it was the year later or the year before this, I think called Bad Boys, and I mentioned this before with S.M. Morales in it, and it's pretty heavy duty at the time, and he's good in that as well. So he was definitely making a name for himself by doing this. Two totally different characters in a short period of time.
Yes. All right, our next movie is a movie that Pixel probably hasn't seen because it's just the whole night. Pixel hasn't watched these movies. It came out October 22nd. It is part 1 of a 2-part story. It's just it's first blood. Rambo.
Pixel, go.
Sylvester Stallone.
I knew it. He has
honestly, I think I saw this with my dad when I was really young, and I don't remember a thing about it.
All right. He's a veteran. He just got out of the war, but he's
I know the basics, but
so
yeah.
his PTSD ends up drifting through. He just wants to go home and gets harassed by these sheriffs, and because he won't speak to them, he's kind of quiet enough. He says yes, he says yes, sir. No, that's about it. And basically, he just wants to get a meal and then be on his way. But because they don't like drifters coming into the town, scum, he ends up basically kicking the shit out of all of them and leading a war against them. And it's just one of the best Stallone movies other than Rocky itself.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know that one of my favorite things is actually reading about how this movie was made, how the first cut of it was just unwatchable. But then they went ahead and they cut a good portion of fluff and just made it what it is today. One of the most iconic roles for Sylvester Stallone of all time.
I just remember he's all covered in the mud and he's just hanging against the cliff, and then he comes out and you see his eyes open. It's like holy shit! Stallone. I had to rewind and pause just to see his face there because he blended in that well, camouflage.
Yeah.
He's being pursued by the deputies, and he's going through the woods. He ends up, basically jumping off the cliff into the water, the river down below. It's like, what? Now, other movies people have done this before in the movies, but this is like the first realistically looking. I was like, this is like insane. He survives. He ends with and then he ends up planting explosives and all this stuff. It's just like it was the National Guard versus Stallone's character John Rambo, and it was just fun. His speech at the end, it's like nobody gives a shit about us. The whole thing. What we could have won. And just the whole thing. It hits me hard every time I hear this speech. Like, what about us? What about the people? My friends are still over there.
That's why I say war is a young man's game, and old people send them in there to die. And the thing with this movie's so good, it was the only one that could come close to taking Conan off its perch that we had this last week, and we saw a lot of that. So check that out. I agree with everything you're saying. Yeah. I think one of the things about this movie though too is it really typifies a couple things. One, even though it's Stallone's film, I'm not disrespecting anything we've said about the review. I think Brian Denny is magnificent in here, and Richard Crenna makes the most of his screen time in here, and you get to learn more about the character just by how they react to it, rather than telling you. It's just you can see in Denny's face how, hey, you may not have noticed, but some of the guys might have roughed him up a little bit. He's like, it's not that big a deal, but god damn it, I wish I would have known that, And Denny, he's really kind of caught because he knows he probably shouldn't have done it, but it wasn't that big a deal, and it turns out in this one case it is, and it's like a cop, catching speed. You're like, hey, everybody else is speed. It's like, yeah, but I caught you. It's such a good movie. And the other thing too is that, and I know I'm in Eric Breen's doghouse right now because I'm dead to him. But if you were to listen to the thoughts from beyond the grave, the passion in my heart, the love I have for him, I would say something like, we could talk about movies like Billy Jack that I think tried to have Vietnam vets in them and all that. I still think this is one of the first very good ones and successful ones that were out there, and the PTSD and all that. It's a must watch, really. I mean, there's some films on here we'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. But again, if we were to shorten this list down, First Blood would be very high up there. It's such a tremendous film.
It's great to see you, Ed, but you're an hour late. Because now we're going to our final movie tonight, and we don't have a lot of time to talk about this, even though it is 48 hours long. Oh my gosh. Just the posters are already offensive, so the movie's gonna be even worse. Man, I've never seen these posters before either. So I said I looked these up. The original movie posters. I don't look at IMDb doesn't always show the movie posters. They just show you like their own new stuff, like the rebooted stuff. Like these are the original like ones you'd see in the theater, which is really kind of cool. So I might start collecting some of these, but the problem is they're probably like expensive. I imagine.
You can find reprints.
Well, I know if I want original though.
So. Who's going for an original? We don't have that kind of money. Original.
No, Pixel. Have you seen this movie? Yes or no?
I've seen like part of it. I started it a few times, just never got through it. Something always got in the way.
I think I say like it's unwatchable. I was gonna say like you sir are dead from
No,
the
of course
channel.
not.
You're
I,
gone. This is a very very fun movie. Eddie Murphy breakout role in this. Nick Nolte, who's such a badass, and just having to deal with this guy and just like the whole thing called honky and like he's using the N word. I was like, this is crazy. Walter Cronco, right? Or is this Walter Hill? I'm sorry, not Cronco, but Walter Hill.
Walter
Right? Yeah.
Cronkite, good night now. We're not there yet, but it's soon.
But Walter Hill movie.
It is a
Um,
Walter Hill film. You know what
that,
else was the Walter Hill film? Extreme Prejudice, I believe, which also had Nick Nolte in it. This is the movie that introduced me
yes.
to Nick Nolte, and the older I get, the more I appreciate his performance in this.
Oh my gosh. So basically, Nick Nolte brings him out of jail because someone's been murdered, and these guys is Eddie Murphy's old crew are trying to find the money that he stashed away before he went to prison, and he needs Eddie Murphy's help to basically to stop them, and also recover the loot at the same time. And it's just funny just seeing those two work together before it's like a cop who's by the moral. He just tough as nails. Doesn't he hates crooks, and he's forced to work with this guy. And I always remember the scene. They go into the bar,
The bar scene,
at
yeah.
a honky tonk bar, and it's just all white people in there. And he's
It's like, I can do it. Just give me your badge.
yeah, he goes in there and he just starts calling them like crackers and all this stuff. He's just racial slurs and stuff. He's like, "You see this? I got a badge. Means I can do what the fuck I want."
The best part about that scene to me is after everything, when he goes up to him and he basically they've got done what they need to do to get ready to leave, and he's talking to him, and he's like lighting his cigarette or like that, and you don't really notice it because you're busy listening to one another. And Nick Nolte's just staring at him like, whatever, and he's unimpressed. And he's like,
Mhm.
"Give me my lighter back." I prefer a movie like this almost rather than
Yeah.
Beverly Hills Cop. Although Beverly Hills Cop's fun, it's
Well,
lighthearted. That's the
I-
'80s version, the lighthearted cop.
I like this better than watching Rush Hour. Rush Hour is too hokey and stuff. I like this. I mean, this is more gritty. This is the buddy cop.
It is a Walter Hill film, so you're going to have a lot of macho shit in it, which is great.
This is also before Lethal Weapon. So, like I said, very fun movie. Pixel, watch all the way through. Rush Hour is kind of like cutesy, kind of like Jackie Chan. It's a Jackie Chan film. That's what Rush Hour is. This is more like your serious film.
Yeah, it is, without question. Yeah. Another good call, another good movie. All right, so guys, again, 10 films that we pick aren't necessarily best to worst or any of this kind of thing, the 10 most grossing ones. It's just 10 that we wanted to talk about. So
Yeah.
Tuesday night we'll be doing two movies from 1983, a show off there, and then next Sunday we'll be doing that as well. We're trying to revisit some old material now that we're over 1,000 subscribers. More people are showing up to chat, kind of give Pixel a chance to take a look at all these older films that he may or may not have seen. So it might encourage him to get involved in some of those discussions, because our job here is to educate him on some of this older stuff. And that's why we do it here, because there's a ton of stuff out there you guys like and watch and cover on your other channel that you get ready to go to. And you'll tell about here in a second that I don't know about, as well as, like, say, Easy E and Ed and everybody else in chat too. That's the fun part about it, seeing all that kind of come out. That's why we do what we got to do. You got anything else you need to plug there, RDV?
Not much. So, I mean, if you guys want to subscribe to Geeky Puppet Show, do that as well. But I would say those who are a fan of Geeky Puppet Show that are also came here to watch this, thank you for doing that. This channel needs a lot of watch time. So if you can go back and watch all of the old reviews, awesome. Because we're at over 1,000, but we're nowhere near the 4,000 mark. So anybody who basically subscribed now and we just ask you, just click, even you don't have to listen to us, just click the playlist and just let it play. That's all you got to do. If I get like 10 or 20 of you guys doing that, going through, awesome. But thank you very much, and we'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Good night now.
This was not a Dan Curtis production.